Here is Ian Crawford. Ian Crawford is an astronomer turned planetary scientist and is currently Professor of Planetary Science and Astrobiology at Birkbeck College, University of London. He is presently also Senior Secretary of the UK's Royal Astronomical Society. The main focus of his research is in the area of lunar exploration, including the remote sensing of the lunar surface and the laboratory analysis of lunar samples. Ian also has strong interests in the new science of astrobiology, the study of the astronomical and planetary context of the origin and evolution of life. So Ian Crawford's talk is Expanding Worldviews, Astrobiology, Big History, and the Socio-political Benefits of the Cosmic Perspective. Welcome.
Thank you. So, right, so I'm going to talk about something that's interested me for quite a long time. It's kind of difficult not being able to see your own words, but I'll stand here while I talk. So I don't know if many of you went to Fred Spear's talk last night where he used this Apollo 8 photograph, and indeed it's used on our programme, of course. And I'm delighted to see the use that this perspective, what we might call the cosmic perspective, that space exploration provides. When you get out into space, you can't help but notice that we live on a rather small planet. So I'm just going to grab my pointer. Anyway, what I want to do with this talk is, at Birkbeck College, I teach planetary science and astrobiology. And astrobiology is a new discipline, really. It's becoming established now, but 10 years ago, it too, like Big History, was very controversial because it's interdisciplinary, trying to bring geologists and biologists and astronomers all together to understand the origin and evolution of life in a galactic, in a universal context. So that's astrobiology, but it's clearly got some links with Big History, because Big History also starts with the origin of the universe and planets, life and whatnot. And then after a bit, the subjects diverge. Astrobiology goes off looking for life on Mars, whereas Big History goes off on human evolution and natural evolution and real history. But nevertheless, there are these strong overlaps between astrobiology as a discipline and Big History as a discipline. So I want to try and make that link. But I want to make what I probably may be somewhat controversial. I want to try the context, the perspective that both Big History and astrobiology and space exploration all bring to the world, to me, has some social and political implications, which I'm going to try and develop for you. Now, there's a quote here. I haven't attributed it because I can't find who originally said it. I saw it quoted by another speaker in another talk who also didn't know who originally said it. Maybe he made it up, I don't know. But most progress comes from a change in perspective. So whoever said that, I don't know who said it, but I believe very strongly to be true. That by stepping outside of where you are and looking back, either literally, in the case of Apollo 8, or figuratively, in the case of Big History, looking back and seeing ourselves in deep time, this perspective naturally sets the mind going off in new directions. And what I'm going to try and say is some of this progress can feed into us social, or ought to, I may put it that way, feed into cultural and political directions. Now, I've been interested in this, what is now called Big History, for quite a long time, actually. This rather red, I don't know if it's dimming the lights, probably not. This rather red piece of paper is the flyer for a course I developed in 1994, when I didn't know anyone was thinking about Big History. In effect, it was Big History. I did this for the City University in London, and I called it Cosmic Perspectives for World History. And you probably can't read it, but I'll just read it out. It says, this course will present a short scientific history of the world, starting from the Big Bang to the dawn of civilization on planet Earth. It will intend as a foundation for subsequent studies in real history and provide a perspective which such studies are currently lacking. And here's the sort of syllabus: the Big Bang, stars, origin of the chemical elements, origin of life, evolutionary history on the Earth, and whatnot. So I sort of lots of other people by the sort of mid-1990s, David Christian and others, lots of people working independently, this sort of idea seemed to be out there. Anyway, I taught this course 20 years ago for a few years, and then it sort of fell out for a bit. And then the astrobiology as a discipline appeared on the collective horizon. So let me just say a little bit about astrobiology. So broadly, astrobiology is about searching for life in the universe, of course. But if you Google it, you'll see it does have what is now almost a sort of accepted definition of astrobiology, which is the study of the origin, evolution, distribution, and future of life in the universe. So leaving aside the future of life in the universe, part of the definition, just the first part of that, the origin and evolution of life, is clearly the same as the first part of big history. We start with the Big Bang and work through to the origin of life on Earth. Now, I just want to make a side comment about astrobiology here. Astrobiology is now quite established. The name caused a lot of resistance initially, and in academia there was a lot of resistance to trying to integrate astronomy with geology and biology and whatnot, because academic disciplines still are, to a large extent, quite separated and people don't talk to each other. And astrobiology brought these subjects together, and that's a major benefit of astrobiology. But it has now these two major international journals, the International Journal of Astrobiology and Astrobiology, and it's got lots of university courses, and it's a word that's now not going to go away as a science for studying the origin and evolution distribution of life in the universe. It's going to stay with us, and it's very beneficial, I think, to the sciences, because it integrates so many different sciences. The point I want to make is big history is a bit the same, maybe 10 years behind. I mean, big history isn't such a well-known phrase. But it's getting more known. It's also tries to integrate all the sciences, but then of course it's even harder, having integrated the sciences to study the scientific history of the universe. It's then got to integrate that with humanities and normal history, and that's a big step forward. And I think it's very important that it succeeds, but I think it will. But I think it's kind of looking at the history of astrobiology as it's evolved over the last 10 years. We're still sort of, it's going to go through a similar process of trying to gain acceptance for itself. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So not only does some of the subject matter of astrobiology and big history overlap, I think some of the history of the evolution of these disciplines may turn out to be quite similar. Anyway, just to demonstrate, this is the website from my astrobiology course at my university, Birkbeck College in London, and I just want to draw your attention to the fact that essentially the first half of these bullet points are exactly the same that were on my Cosmic Perspectives course I did in 1994. Origin of the chemical elements, conditions of the solar system, origin of planets, etc., blah, blah, blah. So all of this is big history, but then astrobiology does go off on a different direction, looking for life on Mars and elsewhere. So it's just a strong overlap between the two disciplines, at least the first half of the two disciplines of astrobiology and history. Right, so I want to come back to perspectives. So if there are going to be societal benefits of big history, more astrobiology, both, I think they come from the perspective in which we see ourselves. So everyone here are big historians, I guess, because we wouldn't be a big, a big historian. Right? So we all know the story. We all know here it is laid out in billions of years. We all know about the origin of the universe and the Big Bang. Well, we have to talk where the universe came from. We know that modern cosmology tells us it happened 13.78 billion years ago, and then we know stars evolved and stars produced chemical elements. And somewhere up here, the solar system formed, and life on Earth appeared out here, and then we've got 3,000 million years of biological evolutionary history on the Earth, gradually producing things as complicated as jellyfish up here, and then the rest of animal evolution is also right. So we all know that. But this is the temporal context in which we live, which big history will. Well, the aim must have been a big history is the more people who know this, the more people will have wandering around the planet to have a sense of our location in time, and this will be beneficial. Now, I just want to pay tribute to some historical figures here, and in particular, I want to. A lot of people have been around this route, thinking about this for a long time, And some of them are not as well known as they deserve to be. And in particular, I want to, maybe you're all familiar with Robert Chambers, but if not, let me introduce him to you. Robert Chambers wrote a book in 1844 called The Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation, and it is essentially a history book written in 1844. And he followed it with a sequel called Explanations, which was basically a response to a lot of critics, because he had a lot of critics that he published in 18. Now, he published this anonymously. It was hugely controversial at the time, and the scientific establishment hated it. And even people like Darwin, who you could argue actually got quite a bit of some ideas out of vestiges, were publicly disdainful of it. Certainly for the co-discoverer of natural selection, Alfred Russel Wallace, who you may know had the same idea as Darwin at about, well, a bit later, wrote to Darwin in 1858 saying, dear Mr. Darwin, I had this great idea, and the great idea was essentially natural selection, which prompted Darwin to get The Origin of Species published quickly the following year. Wallace was deeply influenced by reading Vestiges as a young man, so it did have quite a lot of influence. Anyway, Robert Chambers was completely aware that he was writing Big History, which is why I think big historians need to know more about him. He writes in his book, as far as I'm aware, my book, Vestiges of Natural History, I know it's a strange title, but that's what we call it, Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation. As far as I'm aware, my book is the first attempt to connect the natural sciences to a history of creation. My sincere desire was to give a true history, a true view of the history of nature. So this is Big History, and I think Chambers is the first person that I know of certainly writing in English. I don't know whether there are precursors elsewhere in the world who really explicitly recognised the value of studying deep time, science, giving science a history. This is the modern version reprint, so anyone can go out and order this on Amazon. I strongly recommend anyone interested in Big History does read Vestiges. But the thing that interests me is that Chambers, even writing in 1844, he explicitly realised there were some social and political implications of understanding the history of the world. Because he writes that one of the implications of what he's produced in Vestiges was, so this is a quote from his sequel, Explanations, written in 1845, that it established the universal brotherhood and social communion of man. And not only this, but it extends the principle of humanity to the meaner creatures also. Life is everywhere one. And this is his emphasis, this one in capitals. So he's looked at the history of the universe as it was understood in 1845. He put it all together in a historical narrative, and he'd drawn together what is an obvious conclusion, I think, I hope, to all of us. That we've all had the same history, and so we're all related, and so this implies well, as Wallace has it, the universal brotherhood of man. So that's a major, people can grasp this. More this becomes widely sort of recognised, but one could argue the world might be a better place. Anyway, so Humboldt, great German polymath and explorer, also, of course, had this vision slightly later, at a very similar time. Now, whoever put our programme together has already paid tribute to Humboldt, because you'll recognise this picture. This is a picture from painting in 1856 of Humboldt here sitting in his library. But in our programme, whoever put the programme together, Fred Spear probably, obviously there's an explicit tribute to Humboldt, because this is in our programme, except it's got down the middle of it, it's got our list of plenary lectures. If you study your programme, you'll see that he's used that picture with that at the end. So clearly this is an implicit reference to Humboldt. And Humboldt also had this grand view of the history of the universe, and he wrote his very famous book, right? So no one remembers Chambers and Vestiges, or few people. Everyone remembers Alexander von Humboldt and Cosmos, which was a multi-volume work that took decades to write, trying to synthesise the sum total of human knowledge. Now, there's no doubt that Humboldt had this vision, but actually finding nice, pithy sound bites in Humboldt's work is a bit more difficult than it is in Chambers. But some of the implications are actually, well, I've found, more easily drawn, not from the text, the actual text of Cosmos itself, but by some of the early readers and reviewers of it. And in particular, there's this interesting review of Cosmos published in 1846. So that can only have been the review of the first volume of Cosmos, because the volumes kept coming out until 1862. But anyway, the reviewer, this is in the American Review, Review Journal, American, obviously, 1846. On reading the first volume of Cosmos, came to the view that the individual is made to feel that he's connected to the very nature, by the very nature and substance of his body, with every part of the universe. So Humboldt's writing had made, at least this reviewer, sort of realise that we're all part of the universe together. Of course, now, since Humboldt wrote this, we now know this to be literally true in a way that Humboldt himself wouldn't have realised, because we know that all the chemical elements that we're made out of have been synthesised in stars long ago and far away before the solar system formed, and so the very materials that we're made out of are synthesised in the universe. But this reviewer also drew some social implications from this perspective. And he writes, but this is wealthy writing, I don't know the extent to which Humboldt himself felt this, that if the world is to be harmonised, it must be through a community of knowledge, for there is no other universal in the nature of man. And what I take that to mean, I'm not quite sure I understand the latter part of that sentence, but what I take it to mean is that if we all share this common knowledge, right, if we have a community of knowledge based on a common universal history, science understands it, then we will all have a common frame of reference, which will be helpful if we want to coordinate our human activities. Right, perspectives. So, there's this tremendous perspective from Apollo 8, the Earthrise photograph from December 1968. So the first time actual human beings saw the world from afar. And of course, only a handful, well today, a few hundred perhaps, people have been into space and literally seen the world as a planet. But vicariously, of course, space exploration enables us all to now have this perspective. And I think this perspective is one of the, so it's a clear benefit, so this is a spatial perspective, right? So deep history, big history, provides a temporal perspective, our place in time, but there is a spatial perspective, the cosmic perspective that space exploration enables us to have. Now there is a phrase from Humboldt, which I believe is due to Humboldt. My only caveat here, so let me read it. To Humboldt is attributed this saying: the most dangerous worldview is the worldview of those who have not viewed the world. So I believe that to be a very profound statement, whether Humboldt said it or not. My only caveat here is if you Google this phrase, you will find it universally attributed to Humboldt, but nowhere will you find exactly where he said it. If anyone knows, I mean, it may be buried in Cosmos, which is a huge work. I don't know. If anyone knows exactly where Humboldt said this, please let me know. But anyway, it's attributed to Humboldt, and I think it's true nonetheless. Of course, Humboldt was thinking, I mean, he'd been exploring South America, that's where he really made his name, really, and he'd seen a lot of the world as an explorer. So he was obviously he wasn't thinking about being an astronaut, he was thinking that you've got to travel widely and see the world, and you have a world view, and people who haven't travelled will have quite narrow-minded, or might have quite restricted views of the world. So hence the most dangerous worldview is the worldview of those who have not viewed the world. Now space exploration does enable us literally to view the world in space. So obviously Apollo 8 did that. This is a picture of the Earth from the surface of Mars, taken by NASA's Spirit rover in 2004. So this is just after a Martian sunset. Can't really see it here because the room's too bright, but this is the horizon. There are some low hills here. And the Earth from Mars is just a star in the sky, of course, it's just a bright dot. And of course, no human being has literally seen here. Hopefully, one day humans will stand on Mars and see the Earth in the sky, but it hasn't happened yet. But still, our robotic explorers have, and so we can, sort of viewing through their eyes, we too can see the Earth as a planet. And so this is the spatial perspective. But even for big historians, I mean, so all of us are here, we have this perspective, right? And this is the perspective we want everyone to have. But even for big historians, it is remarkable. I mean, this little dot, 4.5 billion years old as it is is currently the only place we know of in the universe on which life exists. There may be many others, but this is the only example that we know. And all of evolutionary history, from the origin of life through to multicellular animals, through dinosaurs to us, and of course all of human history, all of it, has all been played out on this dot. I mean, it's an astonishing perspective, and it's one that I think big history and astrobiology together, and space exploration, need to bring to a wider public. Now, there are just two slides with a lot of words on, and this is where I'm going to controversial. Well, the first slide is not controversial, I hope, at least not to big historians. The cosmic and evolutionary perspective engendered by astrobiology and big history ought, in my view, and I was glad, people who were here last night will have heard that recording that that Fred Spear played of David Christian's talk in mid-1990s. I don't know, was everyone here last night? But Christian said in a lecture in the mid-1990s, essentially he uses exactly the same phrase here, except I didn't never used it when I wrote this. But that big history ought to be part of the worldview of every educated person. And 20 years ago, when Christian gave his lecture, he sort of had this bet that in 20 years' time it would be, this cosmic perspective would be part of the worldview of every educated person. And of course he's lost that bet, because it's not yet. Right? So but this is what we have to work for. We have to try and make this perspective part of the worldview of every educated person. So anyway, when it is, it will have these benefits. Now, there's a narrow intellectual benefit in that these disciplines integrate the sciences by bringing separate disciplines together. Astrobiology brings geology, biology, and astronomy all together. That's a benefit. And big history takes it further by integrating, or partially reintegrating anyway, the sciences with the humanities. So the humanities fit themselves into this scientific worldview. So for intellectual historians, that would be a vehicle for trying to unite C.P. Snow's two cultures, where Snow and science and humanities in different directions. So big history can bring them together. So these are intellectual benefits, right? They're interest to academics and perhaps, but not to wider society. On a much larger scale, there are these much bigger benefits of the perspective provided by big history and astrobiology, to my mind. There's the realization that the Earth is a very small planet adrift in the wider universe. So just to remind you, there it is. And that therefore maintaining the habitability of this planet is quite important, certainly in the one we've got. Realization that all life on Earth is related owing to its common origin in evolutionary history. And in particular, the realization that all human beings and human societies are related by common evolutionary and, to a lesser extent, cultural history. I mean, Chambers saw this in Due to Life in 1845. This was what his conclusion was from writing. There are tribal divisions, obviously, currently national divisions between human beings, and in the past, the tribes have been smaller. There's I think we have to accept that tribalism is inherent in human beings. I think we've evolved to be tribal through some combination of group selection and individual selection. I mean, I think we can understand where human tribalism comes from. But the good news is, having understood it, we can see that it's the origins of it, and we can try and understand it, and we can see that throughout time the tribes have been getting bigger, from hunter-gatherer bands to city-states to nation-states, and one can extrapolate this, which I'm going to do in a minute. So this is my last slide. So there is some controversial stuff on this last slide, but here's the Earth floating in space again. This is also a perspective provided by space exploration, of course. You have to be quite a long way away from the Earth to see the Earth. I mean, you recognise the Earth clearly, the continent of Africa and the Mediterranean, and Holland's up here in the cloud, like the UK. This photograph was taken by the Apollo 11 astronauts 2 days out to the moon. So you've got to be like 2/3 of the way to the moon and look back and see the Earth like this. Anyway, the cosmic and evolutionary perspective to me implies the desirability of a politically more unified world, because it would be strange, wouldn't it? I mean, if you were, sorry, I've got 2 more minutes left, but if you were intelligent aliens stumbling across the solar system in a spaceship and you travelled all this way, wouldn't it be a bit surprising, maybe a bit disappointing to find that this little dot here is inhabited by an intelligent creature, but it's organised its affairs into 200 tribalistic entities which are arming themselves to the teeth with a risk of destroying each other? It doesn't seem a very logical way of organising a planet, does it? Although, even though we know from the history of humanity, we know where that's come from. It's evolved to our own cultural history, but it's not a very sensible way of doing it. So anyway, I think the implication of having this worldview is that we probably don't have to wait for the aliens to come and tell us that we're not really doing things right. We should. There's an implication here that the world should be organised on a more united basis. Now, I see Daniel was looking at me, but this is the last slide. Aristotle noted a long time ago that man is by nature a political animal, right? And we've evolved to be political animals through our own history, and we regulate our affairs through political and social institutions. So if we're going to unite ourselves on a planetary scale, which is what I think the cosmic perspective sort of carries with it, this implicit recommendation that we do, we need to be looking for appropriate institutional embodiments of a united planet. And this is where it's controversial, I'm afraid, because I think the logic points towards some sort of federal, obviously. We'll never get rid of nation states in their entirety, nor would we want to, because they have their own unique histories. But for things that relate to governing the world, organising the world as a planet, things like climate change, for example, and regulation of common materials like the seas, and increasingly what we do off-planet in common areas in the solar system. These are things that really nation-states have no competence over, and they call for a higher level of political organisation of the planet as a whole, which implies, to my mind, the gradual evolution, obviously it's not going to happen overnight, the gradual evolution of some federated world system of government. Now there are people, of course, who advocate for this. You can Google the World Federalist Association, and you can join if you want to. But they have a definition of world federalism. Let me just read it out. This is the essence of world federalism: to seek to invest legal and political authority in world institutions to deal with problems which can only be treated at a global level. Now, this is obviously a long way away from this becoming a reality. The only thing I would say, you may have to agree with me, but I do myself feel quite strongly, the more people on this planet who have in their mind a cosmic perspective on things, the easier these future political developments are likely to become. Now, it so happens I think the European Union, despite all of its faults, and despite the UK just having voted to leave it, is an excellent example, is an excellent start, let's put it that way. I mean, the European Union does have some faults, and it could be improved, but as an attempt at international governance, obviously on a continental scale rather than a global one, I think the European Union model is well, I think it's a beacon to the world, actually. So we have been set back. The UK Brexit vote, very bad news. But I suspect, again, you may think I'm naive, but I very much doubt many of the people voting Brexit in the UK when they were in the ballot box really had a cosmic perspective at the back of their minds. And if they had, some fraction of them might have voted differently. And it was a very close vote anyway. So I think the cosmic perspective can have these political benefits. But I do think we're not going to move to a world government anytime soon, but there is an evolutionary path towards it. And you may, the evolutionary path, which is perhaps the most viable, is to take the United Nations, which is a very imperfect government, organisation for global governance, but it is the only thing we have. But one of the things that makes the UN so imperfect is it's really just a confederation of nation states. And the world's citizens have no say in it at all, really, except through their governments. And most of these governments are not democratic governments. So there is a campaign for creating something called the UN Parliamentary Assembly. And you can Google this, and there's its website. And the idea is that if the UN, in addition to its current organs, the General Assembly, the Security Council, you could add a parliament, right? And parliaments are elected by people. And gradually over time, parliaments, usually because they have a democratic mandate, gradually accrete more power to themselves than they were originally given. And rightly so. So you can see an evolutionary progression that if we were to start with, if we create a parliamentary assembly of the United Nations and at least start setting up an institutional evolution, it might, in the fullness of time, end in a federal world government, or maybe wouldn't, but at least it could be a start. And the only thing I say about that, linking it back to big history and astrobiology, is the more people on the planet who have this worldview in their minds, the easier such an evolution will be. I think it doesn't mean certainty by any means, but it'll be easier. So I have written up some of these thoughts in this essay, which I'm happy to give anyone if they're interested. Okay, Daniel, I'll run out of time.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.